Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma if you're new here, and I'm so excited that you clicked on today's video. If you can't already tell by the title of this video, we are doing a June and July reading wrap up. So at the end of June, I was in Spain. We did a June TBR video. Instagram picked out the books that we were gonna read in June, and I was in Spain enjoying time with my family and just kind of putting YouTube on the side and taking a good rest from a lot of social media things. We are back and it's August, so we're gonna wrap up all the books that I read in June and July. We're gonna start off with some statistics. So for my June TBR, I didn't have a July one because I was just focusing on mood reading when I was in Spain. I had a Kindle, so I was just gonna find whatever was on Kindle Unlimited at the time, and then I found out how to get free ebooks on my Kindle. So didn't have a July TBR, but I did have a June one, and of those 6 books, we knocked off 4 of them, which is actually pretty good for me. If you've been keeping up with this channel and watching my videos, you know that I love the library and I love my Kindle. I don't buy any physical books, and after I finish a book from the library, I will just return it unless I still have them by the time I film my wrap up, which is pretty rare. But let's just get into all the books that we read in June and July. The first book that we finished in the month of June, and that is Throne of Glass. I was currently reading it in May, at the end of May, I believe, and didn't finish it until June. But that is obviously the first in the Throne of Glass series, and I started with the prequel, which is The Assassin's Blade. It's like a collection of 5 little novellas, and I read that first. I was recommended to do that by a few of my friends and other people that have read it, and I'm so glad I did because I really got background into the main characters. I recommend doing that. But in Throne of Glass, we're following our main character, Selena Sardathian, and it starts with her at this slave camp called Endovier, and she was sent there and she's working there, and it's like really miserable, bad conditions. And then she one day just gets picked up by the prince and the captain of the guard, and they're like, hey, we have an offer for you. We want you to compete in these like trials or this competition thing to become the king's champion and have a chance of freedom and not living in this camp. And if you don't, you can just stay here in the slave camp. So she obviously goes. And I forgot to mention, but she is like a notorious assassin. Like she's the top assassin in all of this, like this fantasy universe. And so she's really well known. So she has to go disguised as a different name. And if you read The Assassin's Blade, you get like her whole background of her being like the top assassin and all of that, which is really cool, and I really enjoyed that. So she goes to the palace. There's a romance in it, which I love. I love the mystery behind the world, all the trials and like the competition aspect of it, and it's just a really good book. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving that 4 stars. Everyone says that the first book in the Throne of Glass series is like not one of the greatest, and I agree. Not that it was boring, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It just wasn't 5 stars for me. All right, the next book is Shatter Me, and that is obviously the first in the Shatter Me series. And you guys, I am obsessed with the Shatter Me series. I did not expect to love this book so much. When everyone talked about it, I was like, oh yeah. I don't know if it was just like the covers that were kind of like not my favorite. I don't know, but I really, really, really liked it to the point where I had a TBR set in June, and I was like, I don't want to read these books. I just want to read the Shatter Me series. And most of the books that I read in July are from the Shatter Me series. So the Shatter Me series is about this girl. Her name, what's her name again? Got me looking in the books to try to find what her name is. I like forget characters' names all the time. Like it's rare for me to remember a character's name. Okay, Juliet. I don't know how I forgot that. Anyway, we are following our main character, Juliet, who has this weird kind of power that whoever she touches, she sucks the life out of them and they die. So she is sent to this asylum, and there's like this whole political problem going on where this organization called the Reestablishment completely took over the world, and it's a really strict program, and they promise to like restore the world, make it better, but they control everything. They control everything that people eat, all their jobs, they monitor them, they know their locations, all of that. It's just like insane control. And so she gets brought by the commander of one of the sections of the reestablishment, and she gets brought to him to like kind of help the reestablishment's cause. They want to use her as a tool in the war. It's so interesting and so good. There is a romance in it. I love the writing. It's so cool. But yeah, it was really, really good. I gave that book 5 stars. I absolutely flew through it. And then within the months of June and July, I read Destroy Me, which is Shatter Me 1.5. There's like a novella after most of the books. So Destroy Me was from Warner's perspective, and Warner is that commander from the Sector 45 of the reestablishment. So it was like a little story of like a tandem story kind of where it took place at the same time, but we're seeing his perspective. I gave Destroy Me 5 stars. And then after that, I read Unravel Me, which is book 2 in the series, and I gave that one 4 stars. It was really good. The beginning was a little bit slow for me. There was just a lot of new developments that we needed to learn about, but I feel like the beginning was just a little bit slow to the point where I was not bored, but just like waiting for things to pick up, which is not a bad thing, but the other ones were a lot better. I just want to tell you guys like what's happening, but I know I can't because it'll spoil all the previous books, like literally everything in like the sense of like the world, relationships, friendships, everything. But yeah, then I read Fracture Me, and that is the 2.5, so the novella after number 2. And I just like, I remember like not even knowing how to rate this one because this one was like really short. It was only 72 pages. So like, I don't know how to rate that. I think I really, really enjoyed it. It's all kind of a blur to me because like the story just like goes all together. And then I read Ignite Me, and this was book 3 in the Shatter Me series, and I gave this one 5 stars. I think this is my favorite book in all of the series. I absolutely just loved, I can't say it. I loved her relationship. I love how things developed. I love the friendships. I love that we're getting to know the characters so insanely well. Like, I feel like they're my friends, like they're my family. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to finish the series, like to stop reading about these characters. Like, I think I might cry. That's so embarrassing to say, but like I really truly, I feel like I'm getting to know these people, and they're fictional characters. They're words on paper. And I just love them so much, and I love this series, and I'm so excited to continue it. I am actually on number 4, Restore Me. I have it from the library. I think I'm like 15% through. I didn't have any books at the moment, so I just started reading that, and then as soon as my August TBR started, then I started reading off of my August TBR. But I read the books from the Shatter Me series in between June and July. I just didn't want to be like, okay, and then I read this book, and then I read a novella, and I just wanted to talk about all of them in one go. So those are all the Shatter Me series of books that I read. And then the next book that I read is Crown of Midnight, which is the second book in the Throne of Glass series. And this one I read entirely on an audiobook. I consider that reading a book. People don't. I really do. This one was so good. Like, it was like, you know, the trials are done. It's after everything. I can't talk about it too much without spoiling it. That's what sucks about reading wrap-ups and talking about a series, is that I can't explain what happens without giving spoilers, and I don't want to be the one to ruin a book for you. So I will never do that on this channel. But it was really good. I loved like obviously the new development. I loved the romance in it. I loved her character in it. It was just so fun. I loved the mystery. There was like a lot of thrilling aspects to it as well. It was so good. It was so fun. I gave that book 4 stars. Again, it just didn't give me like the 5-star feeling yet. And maybe it's because I listened to it in an audiobook format, but it was really good and it was really fun. I just haven't gotten like that 5-star feeling from the Throne of Glass series. Next book that we finished was Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, and this is a literary fiction book. It's a YA book about this 14-year-old girl who lives in the 1970s in Baltimore, and she is from a very like conservative, traditional family, and she's the only child, and then she gets hired as a summer nanny for this family and their daughter, who is, I think, 3, 5, I can't remember, but this family is very not traditional. Their house is messy, they're hippies, they don't go to the country club or to church on Sundays or have like these very traditional gender roles and everything. And so she is just like, it's like very eye-opening for her that like people live different ways, and she just like is learning new things. Like this family's like really open, and where her house is very just like bland and like traditional and strict, and so she's like half living with the Cones family and then half living at home, and then the Cones end up having like this celebrity couple staying at their house who are dealing with issues, and Dr. Cone is like a psychologist, I think, or something like that. So he's like helping them out and getting treatment for things that are going on. And so she's just like secretly living with like celebrities and like trying to hide it from her parents, because she knows that if her mom found out that she lived in this house, she would freak out. But it's like very found family, very coming of age story, super good. And yeah, I really liked it. I feel like it reminds me a lot of like me growing up being homeschooled and like seeing like different cultures and how different families are, and like learning to be like open-minded, not like if things are bad they're bad, but like just like not everyone is the same, not everyone does everything the same way. But yeah, I ended up giving that 4 stars. I think it was really a good read for summer, and honestly I flew through it. I didn't think I would, but I did. And then the next one I read is The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden, and this is the 3rd book in the Little Housemaid series. And this one I gave a 4 stars. The other 2 were 5 stars, like read in one sitting type of vibe. This one was a little bit slower. I feel like it wasn't as thrilling as it was a mystery. The other ones were both thriller and mystery. This one was more of just the mystery that we're solving. There's weird things happening. If you haven't read the other ones, I don't really want to spoil this one for you, but she moves to a neighborhood and neighbors are acting weird. There's weird things in the house that they're finding, and she's like very suspicious of things, but not trying to freak out, not trying to be crazy. And then things kind of pick up, and I would say like the last 1/3 of the book is where things really start getting crazy interesting and gets to be more thrilling. But yeah, I mean, Frida McFadden always just has the fastest thriller mystery books ever, and I can finish them so fast, and they're always good. One thing I felt about it too was like in all the housemaid books there's like a similar concept, and so with this one, not that it was predictable, but like if you've read the other ones and understand like the concept of like the helping in a way, like I'm not going to say any more without, so I don't spoil, but like if you understand like her helping in that concept, you kind of expect that in the other books. So that I kind of saw coming. Like I knew it wasn't going to be like malicious or anything, but yeah, I recommend it. I thought it was good. Give it 4 stars, and if she comes out with another one in that series, then I'll definitely read it. Okay, and next we have This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, and this is the author of Every Summer After and Meet Me at the Lake. And I always thought that this was going to be like a series, but really they're not even interconnected standalones. They're just, she comes out with a summer book every year. And so I read this one and I actually really liked it. I started reading it like through an audiobook on the way to Spain when we were driving to the airport, and I had to focus on all the like downtown traffic and everything. That was kind of stressful, so I only really remember just a little bit of it. So when I got back from Spain, I sat down and read it in my 24-hour challenge. So if you've watched that video, then you know how I felt about it. I kind of explained. I liked where it took place. I liked that you kind of felt like you were in that location. Meet Me at the Lake was very disappointing for me. I think I gave that one 1.5 or 2 stars. I just didn't care. It wasn't connected to the characters, didn't feel any sort of like care or like I don't know, and it was frustrating, and then there was like the miscommunication trope that just irked me. But this one was good. I liked the characters. I liked the backstory. It is about this character, and she is, I already forget her name. I forget everyone's names in books. That's a problem. Like, I can never remember. I have to look on Goodreads to remember what their names are. Okay, so the main character is Lucy, and and her best friend is Bridget, I believe. And she visits her friend Bridget in Prince Edward Island. It's kind of like where Anne with an E takes place, and she visits her at like Bridget's family house, like summer house there. And she gets there early, and she's like, well, I'm just gonna go to this restaurant, and she meets this guy, and he's super nice. The next 2 days they like have like this little fling summer hookup thing, and this is all like in the first chapter of like a flashback of everything. And then she gets to the friend's house, and then he's there, and she finds out that that is her best friend's brother. And before this trip, her friend made 2 rules, one of them being she can't fall in love with her brother. And this sounds like the most stupid rule ever. From the beginning, I was kind of frustrated with this rule. I was like, why is this a rule? I'm not understanding. Like, no one would ever put that as like a rule. And then like later on to the book, you understand why the friend would make that rule, and it kind of makes sense. And so they like have to pretend like they don't know each other. They're like, let's just forget it. But then every year when they see each other, it's like they still have like this connection, and they like each other, but they have to pretend not to. And then sometimes it's like more obvious, and then they like hang out behind her back, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they act like strangers, and it's just like so interesting. So like we're following like past and present timelines, so that was really fun. And I ended up giving this book a 3.5 stars. I felt like the ending felt like an extended epilogue. It was a little bit long, but like, you know, it's a happy ending in every romance book, but I felt like it just could have been cut down to a lot less. I feel like it was long, it dragged out. I didn't need to know everyone's future, how every single character, all the friends, all the siblings, all the family members, how everyone was doing in the way future. Like, an epilogue is nice, but I felt like the end of the book was already an epilogue, and we didn't need that as an extra. But that's why I docked it down from 4 stars to a 3.5. But I still really liked it, and I definitely recommend it for if you want to get into Carly Fortune. I would rank it every summer after. This summer will be different, and then Meet Me at the Lake, which was a no for me. All right, so next up I read Legendary by Stephanie Garber, and this is the 2nd book in the Caraval trilogy. I don't really know how I feel about this trilogy so far. I'm on the 3rd one. I haven't started it yet, but I just don't really know if this series is necessarily for me. And my problem with it is that there's just constant twists and turns, and you can't really trust anything that the book is saying, because the whole thing in their whole like motto, I guess, in this series is like, it's just a game. You don't know, it might just be part of the game. You don't know what's real and what's just part of the game. So if you haven't heard of the Caraval trilogy, you are following these 2 sisters who are polar opposites, Scarlett and Donatella, and they live in this terrible island that is controlled by their dad, who's the governor, and he's very abusive and controlling. And they have always dreamed of going to Caraval, which is this set of games that takes place in a week. It's like magical, and it's controlled by this guy named Legend, and he's like magical or something like that. And so the 1st book is following Scarlett and her story, and her and Donatella escape to this island, and they take part in Caraval. It's very twisty, very confusing, and the plot was very interesting. Like, the creativity was awesome, and I liked the story. Like, I didn't not like it. It just like, it felt like a fever dream, and it's hard to keep up with sometimes. But yeah, so I didn't absolutely love the 1st book, and the 2nd book honestly was worse for me. I ended up giving that a 2.5 star. I had it on my Kindle, and I literally could not pay attention to the words on the screen. Like, I would start reading it. Anything that wasn't dialogue, I would just like, my mind would shift to anything, and I just could not focus. So I started reading it on the audiobook and following along, because even the audiobook I would get kind of distracted. So I would like read along with the audiobook. I was like, what is wrong with me? But I could read other books just fine. I don't really know what was going on there, but yeah, it just like felt the same way. Fever dreamish. You couldn't trust anything. I kind of predicted one of the things that would happen in this book, and I was correct. So it wasn't a major plot twist for me. I kind of expected it to come, but yeah, can't really tell you much about what happened. It was just kind of, I don't know, just not really for me. But I do really want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber as well, but you have to read the Caraval trilogy before, and I only have one book left, which is Finale. So I think that I will just read it in an audiobook format, maybe follow along on my Kindle, and just finish that so I can read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, because everyone I've heard of really likes that one and says that Caraval is nothing in compared to those. So really excited to jump into that series when I finish Finale, but hopefully we will get it over with soon. Okay, it's not bad. I shouldn't be talking about it like it's bad. It's just like, it's not for me. It's not my favorite, and that's okay. But anyway, next we have Reckless, and this is the second book in the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts. And if you know that I am obsessed with Powerless. It was one of my favorite books. It's like one of my like infinity reads, as you would call it. Like it's 5 stars, but like it reaches infinity stars, and like it'll never not be 5 stars. And I love that book so much, and the characters and the banter and the storyline, and like I just love it so much. And I also read Powerful, the Powerless novella that goes after book 1, and that was so good. I really enjoyed that one. And people have a lot of mixed reviews on this book. They said that the plot isn't really there, that it kind of just feels like an in-between book, like a bridge book, and it just was kind of underwhelming for them. I loved it. I read it during my 24-hour readathon while being sick, so you can watch the video to see my thoughts on it. But oh my gosh, it was so good. I like flew through it. I loved like the little cat and mouse that we had going on. I can't really say too much because it'll spoil all of Powerless, but there was like adventure, there's like a cat and mouse thing happening, there was like an undecided ending, like we don't know what's gonna happen at the end, and you don't know until the end. And there was like this twist, this like plot twist that I had no idea what was going on. I was like, did I miss something in Powerless that I just don't remember what was going on? But apparently a bunch of people guessed it from the little hints that were given, and I didn't. But I feel like if she would have just like not had those hints, I feel like it would have been better, because it would have been just like an insane plot twist instead of giving us little hints. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. But I ended up giving this 5 stars. I think about it often. But anyway, the next book I jumped into was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and this is actually my first ever Ali Hazelwood book that I've ever read. So it's a STEM romance that takes place in like college setting. Ali Hazelwood is known for writing women in STEM. So we're following our main character, Olive, and she is studying like cancer research and stuff. There's like this professor that's like a little bit older than her named Adam, and he is very grumpy. He's known as being like the strict, harsh professor that people don't really succeed in his class. But Olive is in a group of 3 friends. You kind of get the backstory. She went on a date with this one guy, not really interested in him, but was just kind of like, you know, I'll give it a chance. She didn't really like him like that, but was like, you know, I'll go on a date, I'll give it a chance. And while she was there, her friend was like, they obviously hit it off. Like they had great conversations, this guy and her best friend, and they obviously liked each other, but didn't want to break like girl code or best friend code of like dating your friend's ex. And Olive was like, no, really, it's fine. And then her friend was like, no, I wouldn't do that to you. So she decides to say that she's on a date with someone else to make her friend think that she's totally moved on, that she doesn't care, because she really doesn't. And then her friend actually walks up to the science lab where she is, and she's like, oh crap. So then she like kisses the first guy that she sees, which ends up being this professor, Adam. And her friend sees it and is completely shocked. And then she begs him to do like a fake dating to pretend that he's her boyfriend for a little bit, that they went on a date. And then he agrees because it's like it would actually benefit him as well for his work. So they go on like this fake dating adventure and try to convince the friends that they are an actual couple. But then obviously in any fake dating, they always catch feelings. I was expecting to love this book a lot more. I gave it a 3 star. I just felt like the main character just kept like dumbing down herself. Like she's just like, oh, I'm not deserving of this, I'm not good enough for this, like no one will love me, like surprised that. And it's just like, it was, you know, it's like real thoughts that like real people have, but like after a while it was like, girl, get some confidence, like you're good, like you're fine. And then like I didn't really like the guy main character. I feel like he was like almost too grumpy, and like he hardly ever talked. Like it would like they would go on their like weekly dates to like make people think that they were together, and it was just like she talked the whole time and he would say like a few things and like somehow she likes him because of that. I don't know, but it just like I didn't really feel like their romance or connection until like the later part of the book. And then also there was only a few spice scenes, so I'm not complaining about that, but what I'm complaining about is it was like very graphic and very like descriptive, and I did not like that. I prefer when it's more talking about like feelings and emotions rather than like listing the physical everything that's happening. So didn't like that. I had to skip through it, but it was unfortunately very long in my opinion. Another thing I didn't really like is that I don't really understand like STEM terms or sciencey things. And not that it was too much of it, but it's just like I didn't really care for that side of it. But people that are, I can see how they would totally love this book. So I like it. I think it was good. I ended up giving it just a solid 3 stars, and I would read more of Ellie Hazelwood's books. I'm not like opposed to it, but yeah, this one just wasn't my favorite. Just a 3 star, and a 3 star is not a bad rating. It's just, it was not great, but it was not bad. It was just kind of mid, but good. It's kind of how I think about it. And then the last book that we're going to be talking about today, the last book we read in July, is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I actually read this in my 24-hour video also, so if you want to see me read that, definitely go watch that video. But we're following our main character Daphne and her fiance Peter, and then we're also following this other character Miles and his girlfriend Petra. And our main character Daphne is engaged. It's like right before the wedding, and Peter is having his bachelor party. He has like this girl best friend that has been his friend forever, and all of a sudden he comes back from the bachelorette party and is like, so turns out that I cheated on you, things happened, I realized that I have feelings for her, she confessed her feelings for me at the bachelor party, and I realized that I'm in love with her, so I'm giving you some time to pack up all your things that we have in this house together that he bought, and you're just gonna have to move out, and sorry to do this for you, and kept playing the victim. And she was just like, had enough. So she has nowhere to live. She's living there because that's where his family is, where his everything is, and then she just followed along, so she has nothing. And then also the other couple, Petra is the one that this Peter guy was with that she confessed feelings for, so her boyfriend is now sitting in the same situation. And so Miles has this 2-bedroom apartment, and Daphne's like, hey, I literally have no place to stay, can I have your spare bedroom and just pay you month's rent until I figure something out? He's like, yeah, sure. So it's like the first few months are just awkward because they're like, how do we even talk about the situation? Like, this is crazy. And they're dealing with the grief of their relationships at the same time, and like getting over their relationships, and like they become friends and like go and do things together. And then they kind of pretend to be fake dating because they get an invite to Petra and Peter's wedding, and so they're like, what if we pretend that we're a couple there? And so it's kind of like fake dating and healing. I liked that they included like being a complete person without someone else. Like, yes, it's like a huge part of your life, but if you're not your own individual person in a relationship, like that causes problems, and you can't have that person be your identity. And so like it was like a lot of that in it too. And Emily Henry just has really good like emotional depth to her books, so I really enjoyed that. I feel like it wasn't anything crazy for me. I love Emily Henry's books, but I feel like I don't rate them as highly as I would other books. And I don't think I've given any of her books a 5-star other than The People We Meet on Vacation, which is like the first like summary romance book I think I've ever read that was not YA, so that was like way in my reading journey and way in the beginning of my reading journey. But I ended up going with a 3.25 stars for this. Again, it was good. I feel like a lot of my 3-star or lower ratings for romance books is because I am still not over the fantasy books that I've been reading and just crave that excitement and fun aspect to them. And maybe I'm just not in like my regular romance era right now, which is fine. It's not like I don't want to pick one up. I just pick one up and I feel just like underwhelmed by them. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in June and July. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and let me know in the comments below what your current read is. Right now I'm reading The Grandest Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book just came out. I was the first one to get it at my library, and I am almost a fourth through it. So enjoying that one, going a little slower because of the season in life that is just so busy. But yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye.